Hello and welcome back to the ocean. It's great to see you here. New Zealand's been a bit cold lately, so we've come out here to Samoa. Just arrived yesterday, it's first dive in the water, excited to see what we get into.
Jumping in straight off the village, our first priority is feeling the water and getting comfortable in this new environment. I'm using some different equipment and a thinner wetsuit, so I'm taking this as an opportunity to get my wading right before moving on to anything serious. Trying out some techniques that might be beneficial here in the tropics. Dusting and grunting are proven successes. My initial attempt brings in some tropical snapper from the sandy shallows, but we headed off to another location to shoot some fish this time. In Samoa, most of the land falls under the jurisdiction of local villages and tribes, so getting permission from them is essential for diving areas. Be sure to check in with the locals before you dive their spots and shoot their fish. I am absolutely blown away by the variety of marine life. It's as if every rock hosts its own colourful array of unique fish. It's absolutely incredible diving here. Basically every species is different from what we see at home. There are some that are very reminiscent. This looks almost exactly what I would call a goatfish back home. In other parts of the world, goatfish such as these ones are a highly prized species, much more so than in New Zealand. This particular goatfish is starting to look very tasty and sticking around. I take the opportunity to load the new carbon conventional and take my first ever shot with it. Taking shots from the surface obviously isn't ideal, but in shallow water like this, your duck dive really does scare the fish away 90% of the time. I load up again, this time heading right down to the bottom and holding on where I see some cigar wrasse harassing an octopus. I extend out on this one that's chasing it and take a shot. As soon as it connects, the octopus takes this as an opportunity to try and get an easy feed. As they say, the tax man comes in all shapes and sizes. But ultimately, in the end, I managed to get this wrasse back, basically unscathed. And the octopus retreats in defeat. Back on the surface, I find an orange band surgeonfish. It's very skittish. I know if I make a dive, I'm not seeing it again. So I decide once more to take a shot from the surface and connect with the fish. What a banger. 3 shots out of 3, all hit. Pretty stoked with the new gun. Surgeonfish aren't called surgeonfish just because it sounds cool. They have razor sharp tail spines. With some food sorted, it's time to head up into the mountains to check out one of the waterfalls. Just like underwater, Samoa's land boasts some incredible scenery. Mountainous, volcanic, incredible. You really do need to watch your step here if you don't want to go tumbling off the side of the cliff. It's wet, slippery, and there's a lot of vegetation, some of which is hiding holes that you could fall down unsuspectingly.
Oh yeah, good form.
After our pilgrimage through the mountains, we head to the ocean trench to cool off for the afternoon. This place is visually incredible, the kind of place you'd see on a postcard. Connecting the trench to the ocean, there are underwater passageways, which allow fish and water to move freely, resulting in an abundance of marine life here in the trench.
I've swum through here to get through to this side. Quite busy, it's a bit of a public tourist area, but you come over here, got the whole. So the water is so warm here, you really don't need a wetsuit. At the moment, 29 degrees. Beauty.
Freediving with nothing but a mask and snorkel is very freeing, but not very effective. A lot of the fish that you don't scare away by floundering around pick up on the fact that you're a bit useless and don't mind you getting a bit closer to them, such as this bluefin trevally. Absolutely incredible colours. This was one of the fish I was hoping to see on my trip. Out to sea on the south coast, the conditions are looking harsh, with big swell and chop. A lot of water moves through the underground caverns in this area, so you need to be vigilant and careful that you don't get sucked through. Driving around Samoa, there's often just animals on the road, or near the road. It makes for some funny interactions sometimes. The roads here aren't terrible, but there can be a lot of surprises, so drive carefully. The falaise are a staple of life here in Samoa. Posted up by the beach, these places can be an ideal way to spend a relaxing day here in the islands.
Hi and welcome back to the ocean. We're currently in Samoa. Today, past the reef.
Hopping in the water, I waste no time trying to swim as far away as I can from the land. The viz is absolutely horrible there, like 1 2-meter viz. I managed to swim out and eventually find some channel. This is the first bit of deep water I've seen. Clean, deep blue water, absolutely lovely. I'm going to be swimming along the edge of this channel, checking, looking down over the ledges into the gutters, typical strategies that you do in New Zealand. I start running into some turtles, some really big turtles, that are coming up to greet me on the surface, coming to see me on the bottom. It's incredible diving. I've never seen so many personally. On the bottom, in a small cave, I find this large groper. I don't want to shoot it, I feel like it's guaranteed lost shaft territory. Turtles have an interesting way of sleeping, going down and just sticking their head in a hole, hoping nothing can see them. It doesn't seem very effective, and I imagine they get interrupted quite frequently, but this might have been its first time coming face to face with some funny diver at the bottom. Doesn't like the look of me, takes off and goes to meet his mate over there. Turtles are interesting animals. Incredibly graceful, but they can be a bit silly sometimes. The sun is starting to go down now. I need to get back in before I'm left out here in the dark. I've missed the channel, so I'm swimming over a shallow section of reef. Some swells coming through, it manages to flip my float boat. I have to get that back, and that's why I'm pushing it here. It was a real stitch up. Make sure where you're going and how to get back, and that's something I'm going to remember for next time. Picking up some rubbish on the way. Something that needs to be done. If you see rubbish out there, take it upon yourself to do something about it. Don't just look at it. Into the float boat. This can will unfortunately be catch of the day as we come away fishless from this mission. However, it was not in vain. It was very important scouting, acting as a draft and working out what not to do tomorrow morning.
Alright, so how'd that go? It's hard work, man. A lot of swimming from all the way over the other side of that wharf. Out there, around, back in. Swimming in this channel. Current was absolutely ripping. Pretty much on slack tide now. I don't know what that's about. It's going total opposite direction to what I thought it was. We've got an incoming tide at the moment. I thought it would be coming here. It was actually trying to push me back out that way. Difficult diving, a lot of fun, cool exploring a new area, but definitely going to have a different dive plan next time. Visibility was not what I expected. Jumping over there, it was like literally not even a meter viz. But I managed to get onto the channel and that was pretty cool. Saw some turtles, saw some fish. Just happy to be out here, really. But what a wonderful day. Absolutely gorgeous. We just headed back in now, almost at the village. Just going to get to shore, walk back a little bit. Tomorrow morning we might be heading out to the same spot, try to get a little bit outside the reef, see what's there, see how the day goes. Play it by ear, live on island time, but probably still be up early.
Staying in a small local village with the chief, I had permission to go out and shoot fish, provided I shared some, of course.
Hello and welcome back to another video. In this episode, hello and welcome back to the ocean. It is great to see you here. In this episode, we're once again in beautiful Samoa. We're going to be heading out this way, past the reef. It's going to be a full send kind of a day, so I'm excited to see what we get into. Wind's a bit choppy. Yesterday the current was pretty strong. Enough talking about it, let's go get it done.
This was a dive that I was super excited to do. Since I got to the island, I was looking at those breakers, breaking on the reef, wanting to get past them, wanting to go out there for a good dive, and this was my opportunity to go out there. I knew where to go, I knew how to do it, and I was going to do it. The conditions weren't looking great, but what is rain going to stop me? I'm going to get wet either way. So, send it. We have made it to the start of the channel. The water here drops off slightly. We're going to get the gun loaded, get the float boat sorted out before we head out through the channel into the deeper water. Make sure everything's working here in the shallows. It's been quite a swim, so I'm going to rehydrate before I get into any diving. Depending on where you are on the island, the drop off of the reef can be as little as about 50 meters away from land. Here, however, I'm not so fortunate. The corals that you see basically everywhere in these tropical waters of Samoa don't appear nearly as frequently in my home country of New Zealand, so I'm blown away. This entirely new ecosystem to me. All these colourful, unique fish swimming over these beautiful corals, honestly amazing. Underwater, things are looking great to me. We got turtles, corals, fish, but when I look above the water, I can see the clouds moving in, and I feel like the weather's about to get a bit worse. On the surface, a few fish join me. This one that I would only call like a Samoan kawai or something checks me out. I move out a bit deeper, the swell is really starting to roll in at this point, you can see it crashing over the reef. Wouldn't want to get caught up in that one. If it weren't for the fact I was totally alone and in an environment that I was very unfamiliar with, I would say the diving is extremely comfortable. The water is so warm that you hardly feel it. You get to wear a thin wetsuit giving you a lot of flexibility, and it's a really nice enjoyable experience in the relatively clear water here. The water temperature ranged between 29 and 28 degrees Celsius. I was quite surprised to see that in Samoa there's actually quite a lot of kelp and seaweed around. This marine vegetation seems to grow predominantly in areas that get a lot of swell, where hard corals might not be able to survive. And seaweed's cool and all, but we got plenty of that back home. Have a look at this coral, that's crazy. Shelves, ledges, homes for fish, little miniature ecosystems, love it. By now the rain was really starting to move in, and pretty much every time I was coming up to the surface I was having a look around to see what the situation was like. Not particularly nice, bit bleak mate. The waves are starting to break a bit more swell coming through, getting some white caps on them. Not lovely conditions. So unfortunately, as a result of all this weather, I did in fact end up getting wet. So I just decided to stay on out there and keep on diving. This bird at one point came to visit me. Back underwater, it's a lot calmer down here. Not feeling that swell throwing me around, getting down to the bottom and hanging out with the fish. It's a bit darker with the current weather, but the fish still present amazing colours. This turtle comes to check me out on the surface, and dropping down there's another one off in the distance. Seems to be the spot for turtles, it would seem. Once again on the surface, the storm's really going at it now. Got a lot of rain, a lot of cloud cover, a lot of waves coming through and breaking, but underwater, once again, much nicer, so it's where I prefer to be a lot of the time. Off to my right hand side here, a trevally of some sort comes to check me out. Pretty interesting fish, I'm going to remember this one for later. The reef in this area was super abundant. The whole time I was just blown away by the species that I was seeing. Every drop, different fish it would seem, most of which I couldn't hope to identify. Just such a vast array of species living in this area. Absolutely incredible. Everything you hear about coral reefs is true. The abundance is there. The variety is there. It's incredible to see it for yourself. From the surface, reefs can often look quite flat, a bit desolate almost, with hardly any places to hide. But once you get down to them, the structure really opens up, and you see the vast array of places that fish can hide from you. From the surface I see a large school of batfish and head down to investigate. Upon reaching the bottom, two blacktip reef sharks appear from the distance and make their way towards me. Checking out, who is this weird guy in our territory? I'd seen a couple baby sharks along the top of the reefs, but these were the first full-size ones. However, I wasn't terribly intimidated. These ones don't get particularly big, I would say. Probably only about 5 to 6 foot. But still, one bite out here could be the end of you. A school of moo moves in and I get greedy here, extending out towards the biggest one and missing my shot, which might have been fortunate in hindsight. I could have stoned a fat as moo and got some epic footage, but it's just as likely the sharks would have got very excited by this and it would have been a bloodbath. I know the moo are in the area now, so I head down to this ledge to try and wait them out. They do really push you a bit on the breath hold. They're very shy fish and take a lot of enticing to get them to finally come in. See some on the edge of my vision here. I can put my head down, do some grunting, hoping to pique the curiosity of those moo as they move in ever so slightly closer, as they like to do. Really pushing out your breath hold, making you wait for the last second, but you always got to remember not to overcommit to fish. No fish is worth dying for. If you're uncomfortable, you should be heading back to the surface. So before I get to that point, I decide I'm going to pull the pin on this dive, head on back up, try rethink my approach and get a bit closer. Here I'm diving some of the upper side of the reef, where the school of moo likes to hang out. Diving on the top was extremely difficult. There's a lot less kind of cover to hide behind. Having a float line makes it extremely easy for the fish to tell where you are, and moo are just very shy in general. It doesn't help when your float line gets caught either. Back down a little bit further now, I'm trying to creep around the side of this balmy where I can see a moo in the distance. They have amazing vision. Big eye sea bream, they definitely do have big eyes and they can see you from a long way away. They act very similar to a snapper that we get in New Zealand when you're trying to shoot them bottom timing. A lot of time when people go spearfishing in the tropics, they like to use a double wrap on their shooting line, which means they get more range from the gun. However, I have personally opted not to do this. You often see, I'm not going to name any names, when people go to the tropics they use a double shooting line, shoot a fish and it gets wrapped up on the coral reef. There simply isn't time to stop it. It's useful if you're in blue water, but around the reef I think double shooting line is pretty irresponsible, so I've opted for a single, meaning they have to get much closer to the fish than some other people might to shoot them. However, this is part of the fun, part of the challenge. I don't want it to be easy. I came out here trying to shoot these difficult fish and I wanted it to be difficult. Heading down to the bottom, I'm going to be trying my luck again. Right down to the bottom this time. In this crevasse, in this gutter, looking out, trying to see where the moo are. Here in Samoa, moo seem to be quite a common fish. I was seeing them pretty much everywhere, to be honest. However, it was never easy getting close to them. They're very smart fish, and maybe that's why there's so many of them. Seem to be quite an abundant resource, but I wasn't having any of it at this point. So I continue my waiting game down here on the bottom until finally at the top right of the screen I see this moo moving in from the distance. I'm looking at it from the very corner of my mast, careful not to spook it, trying not to make direct eye contact till the last moment where I look down the shaft and send a shot and hit the moo. Stoked. I've hit it bad though. The shaft hit the fish in the tail, not a great shot, so I decide to go after it and secure it while I'm down here before heading to the surface. I do not want to lose this fish. With the prized moo finally in my grasp, I can breathe a sigh of relief. Not really, I still got to make it to the surface. Heading into an environment, trying to work it out, trying to work out the fish, how that all coincides together and where you fit in the puzzle so you can outsmart that fish and get a feed. That's what it's all about. Hunting. The modern human world can be so disconnected from reality at times. We hardly know where our food comes from anymore. But going spearfishing puts you smack bang in the middle of it. Right in Mother Nature's arms, where she says, "You're gonna play by my rules now. You're here. Welcome home." Spearfishing is so much more than just killing fish. It is connection with a part of us that we have almost lost entirely. Our hunter-gatherer instincts. Going underwater with a spear gun and interacting with the world this way connects you to a part of yourself that is long since repressed. Long ago, your ancestors were hunters, and probably great hunters at that because you're here. These abilities are locked deep within every human. In our DNA and in our instincts lie the abilities to survive and thrive in the natural world. During my diving throughout the day, I was frequently seeing these batfish, which were making themselves very bolsterous, coming right up to me. But as many species, as soon as you start trying to shoot them, they can make themselves quite scarce. This one wasn't making things easy for me, moving around a lot before heading off and swimming out into the distance. I start swimming towards the fish as I attempt to close the gap, but it does little to persuade this fish to come any closer. In fact, does quite the opposite. So I park up, slow down for a bit, stop, take a little rest, and the fish comes straight back towards me. Definitely not the optimal play here, shooting the fish into the rocks. I cringed when I watched this video again. Don't do that. After getting a shot into it, the batfish is relatively easy to land, making a few short runs, but nothing spectacular. Getting it up to the surface, the fish is actually quite a bit bigger than I thought on the bottom. The clear water can make it very hard to judge fish sizes, however, I was stoked. Very unique fish, the old batfish, quite an interesting shape, like a very large angelfish or sunfish almost. Working my way through the volcanic, coral, subaquatic gutter systems, I'm seeing quite a few snapper. These black spotted tropical snapper, I think they're called. So many different species, it's hard to work out. I see quite a large one hanging out here in this cave and decide to take a shot at it. Once again, not the play, shooting into the rocks, and I missed the fish. Some of the cave networks they found were very vast, and I didn't want to explore too deep inside of them. Often when you see fish that you want here on the reef in Samoa, they'll see you and they'll disappear. They'll just head off into the reef, into a cave, and you got no hope of finding them. From the surface, it can look a bit desolate and flat, but when you really get down, then the structure opens up and you see how many places there are for the fish to hide from you. It's really not difficult. The fish see you, they go into a hole, and you got no chance. So, as always in spearfishing, you want to be acting in a calm, relaxed manner wherever possible. So when the fish see you, they think you're chill. Don't let them know that you have predatory thoughts on your mind and you're out there trying to kill things, because they will pick up on it if you don't do a good job at hiding these. The two ways to get close to fish in the tropics seem to be either ambushing them or waiting them out. Here I'm trying to ambush a unicorn fish. From the top of this ledge I see it, extend out towards it, however it manages to keep enough distance on me that I can't get a shot. Very easy for the fish to see you in such clear water. During a duck dive and as you're descending down onto the reef, you can end up scaring quite a lot of fish away. You'll see when I first look here there's not many fish. I get down to the bottom for a bit, look behind me, and there's a lot more life now. Everything has emerged out from those rocks and begun being comfortable once again. I'm heading back in now, and from the surface I see two large trevally type things. The same sort I'd seen earlier in the dive. As one makes its way off, I send a shot and manage to connect with it. It's a long one, manages to go straight through the back of the fish. It's a bit of a weird shot, but managed to get right up to the gills. The fish is fighting hard and it's bleeding everywhere. I'd seen a few sharks throughout the day, some even came in on that batfish that I got earlier, and I was really hoping to not see one right now. This was probably the worst viz throughout the entire dive, and it just wouldn't be the place to run into a big bull shark or a tiger shark. So I was crossing my fingers, hoping to land this fish ASAP, get it out of the water and not get sharked. The fight that this fish put up was honestly incredible, and we were making a huge kerfuffle, splashing around in the water together. I'm pretty hard on this fish, I don't give it much line, and eventually managed to horse it in and get a knife into it, closing out the fight. But unfortunately the shaft is extremely stuck in the fish, and I have to spend a minute or two trying to work it out, stabbing it through at various angles, but managed to break it out through the top there. This fish that I got is what I believe to be a bronze trevally. Not a bluefin trevally, which I was ultimately hoping for, but it's a close second. Or maybe third because it's bronze. Woo! With a few fish in the float boat, I'm feeling very accomplished today. And continue the journey back in. What a stoke. The weather's even cleared up. Sun's out again. We got fish. We got clear warm water. What more could you ask for, really? So far, the experience of Samoa above and below the water has been breathtaking. With amazing scenery, amazing wildlife, amazing people, the culture is incredible, sitting on the beach in the warm sun, amazing, going diving is just like unreal, man. Once again, it's important to have permission from the locals before you go spearfishing anywhere in Samoa, as basically anywhere you get up off the beach, someone's going to be there and they're going to ask what you're up to.
What's the name fishing? What's the name fishing?
These ones I think are called batfish. I don't know about here, but overseas they call them batfish. And that's moo. And that one's some sort of a trevally, I think. Alright, good stuff, man. Thank you.
I ended up giving my moo away to this villager, so we're going to have to go and get another one. Next episode.
Alright, freshly out of the water. Another awesome dive. Fantastic. It was a bloody mission though. Lots of swimming, lots of hard work. You get the trees. That's what it's all about. Managed to come away with a few fish today, so pretty stoked about that.
This video's sustainability message is share your fish to reduce the need for commercial fishing.